because
Yeah.
Kelly, you're a small business.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. As you saw, we were all still chattering about our ideas as I push the record button. My name is Kelly Baltzell, and I am welcoming you to the Unfiltered Vet Discussions today. You can find more information at unfilteredvetdiscussions.com on various social media platforms, as well as podcast platforms. Please come and like us, share, and comment, as we would love to hear from you. And what we started chattering about this morning is the life cycle. In the life cycle of a career, life cycle of a hospital. There's a lot of different cycles when we are going into business, and we have some thoughts that we'd like to share with you today. So I'm going to open it to my compatriots. What life cycle were we chatting about? Because I think we had 3 or 4 on mind as we were pushing the record button.
I think we were talking about the life cycle of a small business. And, you know, Stacy, I don't know when you were in veterinary school, if you were thinking about being an owner at that point in time. Phil, I don't know if at any point in time you were thinking about being an owner. David, you grew up in a stainless steel cage or a run in a veterinary hospital. And Kelly, you're a small business owner yourself. So all of us in some way, shape, or form have been through a life cycle. Some from womb to tomb, that's me. Others from womb to continue currently in existence. And so I think it's interesting to look at where things stand, and we could focus on the veterinary profession because I think there's been some changes there over the last 20 years. But I do think looking at where independent small businesses are headed is an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I know when I got out of veterinary school, I would say the thing that consumed me for probably the first 5 years was trying not to kill anything. That's really all I cared about. And I didn't have any kind of bigger outlook for the business side. And I feel like that's probably still pretty true for most new grads. But at some point, at least for me, it wasn't enough. And I needed to figure out how can I'm already like, I think I've been bossy since I was 3. So I do like to call shots, and I see things like that doesn't make sense. We should do it this way. So that started hitting me about 5, 6, 7 years in, where I'm like, all right, I can't just be an associate. Once I've learned how to stop killing things, I have to start figuring out how can I, what else can I do out here? For me, that's when it hit me.
Yeah, I think what was interesting is kind of the shooting all over ourselves. And I was actually just talking to our dear friend Andy Rourke before I got on here. We were just kind of blabbing, and I was like, what was crazy is when I was a senior, I wanted to be Link Wellborn. So I'm from Florida. Link Wellborn, very, very well known, high degree of business acumen. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I graduated vet school. I was a little older when I graduated. So I was 30 when I graduated. And so I was like, man, I gotta get going. And then things happened. And, we talk about, my journey. I got into recovery, got sober, had a, huge amount of growth that happened. And I realized my reasons for wanting to do that was very much that should have, like, it's like what I should be doing, and not leaning into the things that, hey, I'm really good at this. And to, to Stacy's point is like that day one stuff is like, hey, where's the bathroom and where's the epinephrine? Like those are the 2 things I need to know. Like, and then as time goes on, we get better at it, just like math, we don't go in and do calculus our first day. We've got to build on it. But very much like understanding what our strengths are too. And I think the personal, because small business made up of small business owners, is what does that journey look like, for us? Like, what are our goals? What do we want to do? David?
Well, I think what you shared, Stacey, is spot on with a lot of the future owners with whom I work and the folks that are buying practices get out, what's the phrase right now, practice, not practice ready, I guess, and need to cut your teeth. There are some folks I work with that they went to vet school knowing, and their passion was, I'm going to be an owner. But I think for many, that 7-year itch we were talking about a little beforehand, you get out, it's like, okay, I came, I did it. Now what? And is that when we see, and I'd be curious to, if any of you know any stats, people leaving the profession or moving from private practice into industry? Is that in that 5 to 7 year window that, okay, I came, I did it, I want more.
I
And,
think when,
you know,
yeah,
maybe that's when ownership plays in a role as well.
well, if there's a point in practice life where you're like, I cannot literally squeeze another anal gland, deal with another itchy dog, deal with fill in the blank. There's a point you hit in it. For me, it was around 5-6 years where I'm like, I did it. And okay, I don't want to keep doing. Is this what the next 20 years is supposed to be like?
Yeah.
Maybe that's when you start branching out and exploring, is this the right job for me? Or is there another path within this profession that I could thrive in? And there are definitely lots of vets that stick through it and they find their niche being the associate, and that's perfect for them. But there's a lot of people, it's just like unfulfilling.
Yeah, I'd like to see ownership. The pendulum swings, and I think, Peter, when you graduated and shortly after, it was still continuing that, hey, that's what you did. You became an owner.
Right.
And then it moved the other direction in 80s, 90s, you know, when Dad sold his practice, none of his associates wanted the practice. They're just, I'm happy to be an associate. I don't want the responsibility on the job. And it swung that way. I am starting to see, and in talking with colleagues, you know, it's starting to come back. People are getting tired of being somebody else's and following somebody else's direction. I want to do it my way. I want to be responsible for my team and my team's family, and I want to be in the community.
Yeah.
And ownership is where you get that control, and not just control, distributive leadership and everything, but you have that ability to impact, and it can be financially rewarding, but that's not why most of the people that I work with, that's not why they do it. They want more, and they want the responsibility. And so there are a lot of great practices out there needing owners. I'm trying to encourage that. It's a great way to grow professionally.
So I teach third-year veterinary students. And before we start the class, I survey them as to their interest in hospital ownership, what they see as their future, et cetera. About a third are, yes, I want to be an owner, even before, you know, the start of third year. About a third are interested in postgraduate internships, residencies, public health, et cetera, shelter. And about a third are sitting on the fence. I look at my goal during the business class to convince them to be entrepreneurs. That basically any of the fear factors, the misinformation and disinformation that's coming from all sorts of people out there that you can't compete with mega bucks, daddy warbucks out there, is all misinformation. They're also terribly afraid of the student loans as being a negative, when in speaking to bankers, student loans are not negative. They are good debt, not bad debt. So I think we have to do what we can to keep the entrepreneurial spirit in a profession that has always been entrepreneurial. I opened my practice from scratch, less than 3 years out of school. Had no clue what I was doing, made every mistake under the sun. Didn't have a group of people like yourselves that I could go to and seek help. And so I went back and got my business degree that helped me have a much better understanding of how to run a small business, because at least when I went to school during the dark ages, they didn't have the education that's now available for veterinary students. So I think the life cycle has moved from 3 years out of school, even 1 or 2 years out of school back in the 80s, to 5 to 7 years out, because of the volume of information and soft tissue handling skills that are necessary to get the confidence before you take the next dive into a completely different world, which is the ownership of a business. It's being a doctor is one thing, owning a business is another thing. And being a doctor that owns a business doesn't mean you're going to be successful at owning the business.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's the important thing that we have to get across as well.
And I think too, Stacy, knowing you for as long as I've known you and things, ownership too is a place to show your creativity. Like you were saying, you know, I just try to keep the animals alive my first 5 or 6 years, and you check that box and figured it out. But I've noticed a lot of owners have a lot of ideas and they have a lot of things they want to create, be it a culture, be it an experience, be it just a type of medicine. How do they want to create their vision of moving forward? Because each veterinary practice has its own flavor. They're not all the same, right? And it's that flavor and is driven by the business owner. And sometimes when you're an associate, you get the chance to craft the vision. But a lot of times that becomes the right of the owner, is what vision do they want to bring to the table? So like you have created some amazing things, Stacy, that was your vision, that was nobody else's vision, right? And you got to create it and see it through that you probably couldn't have done as an associate.
Right. And I think what a lot of associates face, like I did, is you get sold. And now you're working for, you're 5 to 7 years in, and your practice just got sold to a corporation. And you are in a difficult spot. And you're also shown this like grand vision of how you won't have to worry about any of the bad stuff. And you can just practice medicine, and you can just be this wonderful veterinarian and do all the things you went to school for, and don't worry your pretty little head over any of these ugly things about payroll and profitability and all this, and we're going to just pay you on production and it's all going to be great. Well, my experience is that is like the biggest misperception for an associate that has ideas, that has a leadership mindset. And really private independent ownership is where you're going to thrive. And let's face it, it's not that hard to do payroll. It's not that hard to get a loan from the bank and buy the equipment. And you're probably already doing a lot of the harder stuff anyways, which is the day-to-day people management. I think like filling in, give me a spreadsheet all day long, give me a payroll. I'd love to do that versus talk to somebody about their attitude problem on the floor. I just think that the environment hasn't fostered the ability for associates to transition very easily. There's a lot of fear that's projected to why you can't or shouldn't be doing it, and leave it to the big guys to do it because they have it all dialed in. And you should just stay in your box and be the best you can be over there, because that's what you said you wanted to do on day one. Does that make sense?
Oh, for
Oh,
sure.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think they are being fed that, and now you can't afford it. Yes, you can. There's no money down when you buy a practice. You get 100% financing on the practice and the real estate. The profit pays for the practice, the rent pays the mortgage. You can outsource, you hire a bookkeeper, you hire a payroll service. I mean, it's easy. Does it work? Yes, but it's easy work. You just have to be cognitively engaged in the process.
I'm like, if you can take a spleen out, you can run a business. That's fine.
I don't know, taking a spleen out is sometimes harder than firing somebody. I jest that given a choice between talking to a difficult client and doing a fat dog spay, I'm not sure which one I'd run faster from. Talking about fat dog space.
There's Cody. Hi, Cody.
Hey, Cody.
We're talking about the life cycle of a business and the 7-year itch and getting into a business. And being able to have the creativity. So everybody who cannot see, Cody has joined our podcast. Welcome, Cody. Man, we're stumbling all over ourselves today. So we were just talking about, as being owners, that you can be creative as the owner. You can spread your wings. And boy, you have done a lot of creative things with your practices and have said, yep, we're just going to give it a go. What do you think your life cycle was? Like, how many years after being in veterinary school did you open a practice?
So I became a practice owner within 2 years. And then I got I guess a 3-year itch into that when I started buying mixed animal practice. So then became a mixed animal consolidator, bought 6 practices there. And then I was a decade out of vet school when I jumped into companion animal. So complete reimagination of myself, to go from a cow vet for a decade to, there was 13 years between my last spay that I did and then the next spay that I did in small animals. So yeah, if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Exactly.
And how many do you own now?
3 practices now.
And what made you jump to companion? Was
Yes.
it the lifestyle or the
No,
money or?
not at all. So when I had divested out of all of those practices in 2019, I divested out of my cow vet practice. I divested out of the mixed animal practice. That was all due to partnership issues. So I had a lot of strife and struggle, and the practice was going in a different direction. And the practice owner, that my practice partners wanted to sell a portion of our practice to a very large practice group, and I was not interested. I tried to buy the entire thing so I could go it alone, and in the transition ended up getting shotgunned out of the cow vet practice, and then really just became a free agent and was lost in the world, and was traveling around the US with Adam Conroy and Dan Mark Walder, who had then after that became part of MVP, and Danielle Lambert. And what it really truly was I was traveling to US cities, speaking to them about how great practice ownership is. We were filling up hotel conference rooms in Chicago and Atlanta and Raleigh, and I kept getting so excited about the things that we were talking about, hearing Dan talk about the future of veterinary medicine, and listening to Danielle talk about branding and creativity. And I just kept getting I got excited, and then I got frustrated because I kept thinking, like, look at this amazing opportunity, you guys. Like, you have such an incredible opportunity right now to go out there and to create these fantastic veterinary brands. And that opportunity has never existed like it has. And it was born out of frustration that, like, look at how great we can do. Why doesn't somebody do it? And I just finally got to the point of, if nobody else is going to do it, then I guess I'm going to do it. That's what it came out of.
Yeah, so we've kind of focused on the birth of the baby or the start of the hospitals, but there's really a life cycle, and we're not going to cover the entire life cycle today. So I think this is going to be a part 1, part 2, part 3 conversation, because what actually got us started on the pre-conversation was the 7-year itch of getting out. And some of that's burnout, some of that is other things. But we've got different business models in the sense that I did a startup shopping center from scratch 3 years out of school. Cody did food animal, then became a conglomerate, then started back from scratch after his seizure. Stacy, I think you bought an existing hospital, correct?
So I ended up getting taken out by a corporate. So I had the first right of refusal on this practice. I moved to Colorado to buy the practice. And a year later, that was the agreement. A year later, we declare our intentions and move forward with the sale. And NVA swooped in and bought it right there. And I didn't realize, I mean, how am I supposed to know I can get $1 million to buy this thing? I don't know how to do that. So I didn't think it was possible, because the idea was the owner would finance me, and that was off the table. So it ended up, I bought the land and building. NVA became the tenant. I still own the land and building. But like Cody says, frustration led to different decisions, which I ended up leaving practice and starting a technology company after that, because it couldn't thrive in the confinements of the corporate world with the ideas I had and I wanted for myself and for my patients. Yeah.
And Phil, of course, you've been working in a variety of different environments, many corporate, some private. So you've kind of been taste testing and sleeping around to get a feeling for how these business models work. And you probably have more diversity with your perversity than any of us.
I appreciate you putting it that way. What I would say is one of the most important things that was said, and David said it, was impact. You know, and that was where, you know, about 5 to 7 years out of practice, you know, I joke and I say, if I could go back in time and this old man could sit in front of 4th year vet student me and go, hey, by the way, you're going to be, you know, speaking at VMX and these big conferences in front of people. And then 4th year me would be like, oh, wow. Like, did I invent like a new surgical procedure? No, not exactly. Oh, did I invent a new drug? And then it's like, well, it kind of had something to do with drugs. And you know, anyway, that joke never, like with the recovery community, it really lands well. And then it's just, anyway, I thought it was fun, but meaning that how could I best make impact on the profession with the tools that I had, with the things that I knew that I was passionate about. And for me, that was in the area of well-being, you know, in the area of psychological safety, and how can then I be of service to my colleagues and help as many pet owners and pets by helping the people that take care of them. And I still practice, you know, twice a day. And, you know, a veterinary hospital just took a spleen out not too long ago. We were just talking about a splenectomy. But knowing how impactful those things are. And I guess that's where that, you know, is, where can I continue to make the most impact? And knowing each one of you, I know that, I mean, we all would have been stockbrokers if we just wanted to make money, but every one of us wants to make impact in a positive way. And we're all doing that in a way that feels best for the strengths that we have and the direction that we go. So hope that wasn't too perverse for you, Dr.
Not enough.
It's a great podcast title. What did you say, Peter, about perversion?
It was basically his diversity of perversity, because he's been in all sorts. He's slept around in all sorts of different opportunities from that standpoint. But it is interesting. I know we've got to wrap up this episode, but I think the 6 of us who are on this have different roles. We're here today because of the desire to make an impact. And I wrote an article 20 plus years ago when I was president of the SCVMA. This was before, you know, I was very young. I was kind of like Cody's age or so. And it was about the Dilbert effect in veterinary medicine, where we were lost in our cubicle, 3,000 square foot, 1,200 square foot. And we never really understood what was going on outside in the world. And I think all of us are here right now because we can't be held back into a cubicle or into a stanchion or into a run, and that we want to make a difference. And I think part of the conversation that we need to continue in next one is, when do you feel you are just sufficiently making a difference in your practice? And when do you want to make a bigger difference that might actually motivate you to get out of your practice? And what does that look like going down the road?
And I think that sums it up beautifully. So we will address that topic next time on Unfiltered Vet Discussion. We appreciate you being here, and come like, share, comment, pass your podcast to the friends, see what they have to say. And until later, we will see you and have a good day.